The time has come for us to gab about gabs, aka the Great American Bar Scene, aka the 5th LP from Zach Bryan. Everyone here on the channel has followed Zach Bryan's rise, and I feel like if American Heartbreak was the album that really established him as a star, then his self-titled album last year is the first one he released as a star. And I would say that the Great American Bar Scene is the first album Zach Bryan is releasing as a superstar, as someone in a celebrity relationship that people gossip about. And when he posts stuff, it's not like, oh, that got like 2,000 likes. It's like it got 300,000 likes, you know what I mean? And there was a real build up to this album that we didn't get on the last one. That one just kind of came out all at once, and you heard all the songs for the first time on the first night. This time we had Pink Skies.
So clean the house, clear the drawers, mop the floors.
And then we had Purple Gas, a collaboration on a song that was written by Nolene Hoffman, and he put that out with her a few weeks ago.
I've got plates for purple gas, about the only break.
But fittingly for an album called The Great American Bar Scene, he dropped it on July 4th. It's immediately big out of the gate, and here are my thoughts on it. I've tried to film this like 45 times, and for some reason I'm having trouble articulating my thoughts on this album. Grady, talk about this aspect. Grady, what are your favorite songs? Grady, I don't even care is the issue. I literally don't care. I don't care what I think of music, but we're just gonna go. Overall, I think this album fits really cleanly in with the rest of Zach's discography. There's a lot on here about gratitude, there's some about grief, and yeah, there are some bar songs, although I don't know that it is as bar-ish as I was assuming it might be for an album called, you know, The Great American Bar Scene. In any case, I feel like it exists in Zach Bryan's world, and really, I think Zach Bryan is maybe the king of world building and of vibe. I think he has such a sixth sense about how to image himself and for the music to reflect that and how everything just kind of goes together. I don't know where he learned this art of, you know, kind of never-ending branding that is like also musical and cool, where it's all pool tables and pearl snaps and cigarettes and Trans Ams and just everything exists in this magical universe. And I would argue that that vibe is more iconic than the tunes themselves, because I think this album's really good and there's good songs and it's cool to listen to and enter into that world. But I don't know that I exit it remembering so many of the songs, as much as I remember kind of, here's how it made me feel.
In the Great American Bar Scene.
The album feels like a classic American album. I would say the sound of it is like heartland rock, kind of mixed in a little bit with folk and country. Obviously, there's gonna be some Springsteen comparison to the sound, but I don't think Zach's hiding that. I mean, Springsteen is quite literally on this album. But it's also a bit more polished than I think we are used to hearing from Zach in the past. There's no things like the crazy out of rhythm clapping that was happening on Fear and Fridays on the last record. I would say generally things are a little more in rhythm here, but still feeling so live, you know, and I know they recorded it live and it does feel that way, but I would just say like the parts feel refined. The palette of instruments, it's mostly guitar driven. You got guitar and bass. They play around with a few more kind of electric guitar textures, which is fun, especially on the John Mayer track, Better Days. You get harmonica, which gives it that kind of classic Americana feel. I love the drum sounds. You even get a little bit of organ here and there. There's not a ton of steel on the record, but like on Like Ida, you get a big steel moment. And then I'm loving the introduction of horns. You know, I really love how they sound on Oak Island. The chaos of Oak Island, I love.
To Jay's Tavern and it happens.
But I also think he's playing with a few more kind of studio tricks than we've heard him do in the past. You get some vocal doubling on tracks like Bass Boat.
But if you give me 4 minutes and a little bit of time.
You even get a choir later in the album on Towers. And I think he is pacing this kind of broadening of the sonic landscape of his music from when it was just, you know, literally drums and a guitar in him. And it's fun to watch that world kind of blossom more and more. But I think that live feel is really essential to what Zach does and to this album. First listen through the record, my 3 favorite songs were pretty obvious standouts to me, but for different reasons. I think my favorite overall on the first listen was 28. And this seems to be the song that is raising its hand as kind of the public's favorite as well.
You took a train to the south side of Boston, you showed me where.
And this song is about kind of feeling at home and in love with this lady in his life and being at her hometown in Boston and meeting her parents, and just life is hard, but all these years of blood pumping through my chest, all 28 of them, like I feel home with you and in this. And it's just kind of this mix of where we've been in the hardship and the kind of comfort that he feels at the same time. It's a very beautiful song, and that whole hook of how lucky are we?
How lucky are we? It's been a hell of a week.
I think typifies kind of Zach's attitude. I think American Nights is another favorite of mine.
We're hot American nights.
It feels so summer, it feels so 4th of July. I think it's like a good dose of like rah-rah, born in the USA kind of energy that's like sexy and fun and cool, and I'd say like a needed dose of fun on an album about a bar scene. And it's so funny how sometimes the silliest, stupidest little things in music are what give it character and shape, where it's just those breaks of wet, hot, American night. Well, I guess fun. And my other favorite is Oak Island.
And I got bad blood with some blood out on Oak Island.
I love Oak Island. You know, I hope Oak Island continues to, as I said, raise its hand and get the respect it deserves. I think in this song, I think Zach's kind of role-playing storytelling. He's got like a mythical brother that's getting involved in the drug trade, and he's like going to find these bad people that he's gotten involved with, and yet also the guy's like, no, I belong with them, like this is me now, and Zach's trying to, you know, fight that. I even looked up Oak Island. I don't know exactly where it's about. There's an Oak Island in the Carolinas. I don't think it really matters. The cool part about the song is the chaoticness of it. Like there's organ, and then you've got this trumpet part happening, and it goes into a crazy cacophony of sounds at the end, but then in all of the sort of intensity, the chorus kind of falls back into like a sustain where it's like, if I find them on that island. Like it's kind of a mix of pretty and threatening. I love it.
But if I find...
I really didn't hear any of the songs on this record and think, those are bad. There's some that I feel like I skip. I tend to skip Boons, maybe Northern Thunder, maybe Funny Man, although the drop is kind of cool. Good chorus, I must admit. But in general, I think they're really good. I do think they need bridges. I'll talk more about that in a little, but I do think Zach Bryan's songs need bridges, okay? I love a bridge. I love a bridge. When you see him live, I just saw him live, amazing show. They basically play like verse, chorus, and then like repeat the chorus again at the end. Part of it'll be quieter and then it'll be loud and like big and sing along. And I'm like, I think you want a bridge because you're playing a third chorus like a bridge. That's my soapbox, everybody. I love that soapbox. Don't take it from me. And also thank you to John Mayer, because that song like a little bit has a bridge. Better Days a little bit has a bridge, and I love that for me. And for you, for all of us. Speaking of which, we got a bunch of collaborations and features on this record. The John Mayer one is my favorite. I love that little guitar part he adds in. I think it's like sexy and cool and not too in the way. It's just classy, and I like that playful electric guitar in a song about better days. Because the song's not actually like that overwhelmingly happy. It's kind of hopeful, if anything. And I feel like the guitar fits that. The Bruce Springsteen feature on Sandpaper, I also think is really good. I think that song has to be an intentional tribute to I'm on Fire. Like the drum part, the feel of it, it's like the exact same.
Shape you take when you lay like that. Oh, I'm on fire.
He's not credited on it as like a writer or anything, but I'm like, this had to be an intentional I'm on Fire reference, right? A lot of people on the internet were saying Bruce sounds bad. Look, Bruce is old, and I feel like it's just kind of iconic and cool to have Bruce Springsteen on a record, like an American record. So, you know, shut up, everybody.
When I close my eyes, I think of times I could smell and hear that.
People always say that about Willie Nelson, too. They're like, oh, Willie sounds kind of old on this Casey Musgrave song. Guess what? Willie's old. Let them collab while they can. Or just, I don't know, AI them into the song. Everyone gets a Randy Travis collaboration. I'll stop. I've already talked about Purple Gas with Nolene Hoffman, but that's great. It's so cool to hear John Moreland on Memphis the Blues. That song's great. Like, I really like that song. John Moreland's such kind of a sleeper icon of the red dirt world. And so I know he's a huge hero of Zach's as a songwriter. And so I like hearing that there. Then there's some kind of low-key features that are quasi-credited. There's a new verse at the end of Pink Skies, which has a separate album version that has Watch House on it, formerly known as Mandolin Orange, now Watch House. They're on there. Morgan Mines, who is Zach's photographer's fiance, is doing some of the vocals on Bass Boat.
My old man bought a big bass boat.
And those all sound cool. Lyrically, I think this album is extremely evocative and full of imagery. And, you know, that goes all the way into naming almost every person in his band and in his world. You're always hearing, like, Danny did this, or Noah said this, and Mary was over here. Like, everyone is named, which kind of makes it fun. You kind of have to keep up. You're like, okay, did he just mention, there's some bar like McGlinchley's or something like that. I don't even remember what it's called on 28, but I like having to use my context clues and be like, okay, I get it. It's some bar in Boston or Philly, wherever it is. But this is where really I think Zach shines as what I'm calling the king of vibe and world building. On Mechanical Bull, he's talking about a photo catching dust in your old apartment. We've got Fords on the Shore in American Nights. There's a screen door cracked with a ball game on. And every single little detail helps kind of flesh out the place that we're in, and it's old and it's American and it's a little dusty and it's well worn and it's had beer spilled on it. It's cool. Like, it reminds me, honestly, I took a screenwriting course in college, and I remember when you write a screenplay, you are just supposed to write the dialogue. All you can say is like interior coffee shop, and then you write the dialogue. I got the note on my screenplay, if we're willing to call it that it was just way too detailed. It was like, I was sitting there naming, this is the song playing in the coffee shop, and there's a green sofa, and the sun is hitting it just so. Someone walks in, and she's wearing leather boots, but like a mini skirt, whatever. I was naming all this stuff, and he's like, that's not your job. That's what a novella is. If you want to write a very short story and just kind of sit in all of the, you know, languid beauty of what you're writing, that's a novella. And you're writing a screenplay. I feel like Zach's kind of like a novella writer. And I don't mean that necessarily as negatively as it sounds. I just think he does build the world around you. You know where you are. So I would say it's his competitive advantage. It's the thing he does really differently in how he writes from others. It's kind of his biggest strength. At the same time, I do think there's a weakness side of it, where sometimes that is prioritized over kind of the universal, beautiful form of music. The interesting thing listening to this record is you sort of wonder, could these songs be covered, you know, as part of the Great American Songbook on whatever version of American Idol exists in 2055 as true classics? Are there lyrics in his music that are as beautifully universal as I will always love you, or, you know, you are so beautiful to me, or never mind, I'll find someone like you? I think he's come very close a few times in his career with Something in the Orange, or maybe I Remember Everything, or kind of Godspeed. But in general, it's not really how he writes. And as I said, I kind of like that about him, but I'm yearning for kind of this beautiful, more universal thought that's a little removed from some of the specifics of where we are. And I wonder if part of that, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, is Zach tends to have the most interesting, cool line of his choruses as the first line. Or he'll bookend a chorus of like, Wet Hot American Nights is what enters the chorus, and it's what ends it. Same thing on Godspeed. But a lot of times I feel like the first line is the most interesting. Like on Pink Skies, like, so clean the floors, rattle drawers, da-da-da, stand tall. Or on 28, how lucky are we, it's been a hell of a week. That's a loose thought, I'm not fully formed on it, but he's not like the hookiest writer, not shocking here. But I wouldn't mind sort of a step in that direction a little bit. And obviously, while we're talking about form, I'll just say it again, I wish he had bridges. But I am glad that Zach Bryan prioritizes like his world. I think that's part of what makes people so passionate, self-included, about his music, is you really do feel like you're entering into a different universe. And I can think of hitmakers like, I don't know, Maroon 5, let's say, or Chris Young. Tons of hits, but no clear world and vibe that they live in. It's kind of more, they flow with the times. Now, they have fans and they have hits, and I would never take that from them, but do they have like a passionate, devoted audience that loves them specifically? I wouldn't say so, and that is what Zach very clearly has. That's why people get so annoyed, because they find his fans annoying, and sometimes they are. Sometimes they are compared to the Swifties, and if you thought you were gonna get through a Zach Bryan video without me bringing up Taylor, you're so wrong. I've enjoyed watching them spar on the sales chart this week, where Zach's album was doing well, Taylor wants to stay at #1, so then she dropped like acoustic versions of Fortnite, but then Zach sent out a text message that was discounting his vinyls for one day, but then Taylor released a live from Stockholm thing. I like the labels. Everyone's trying to juice the numbers and be #1, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, you know, obligatory reference in a video. It's what I do, baby. And yeah, everyone always thinks I'm comparing their music, but I'm really kind of more comparing this thing that I'm talking about, this world building. I think like, yes, I do think they write about some of the same stuff. They think about memory a lot, but it's more just this like weird knowledge of how to be a star is what I'm saying is similar between the two of them. Like the strange way to know to kind of publicize your relationship, but also kind of not want anyone to talk about it. And then to thread that into the music. It's like a true inherent sense of this is how to be a star that I think they both possess. And it's kind of fascinating to try to hear where that is in their music. And I think they're both extremely ambitious, but also threatened by their own ambition and probably hate such comparisons to other people. But you know, here I am to try to synthesize. For me, the front half of the record is a little stronger than the back half of the record. Occasionally, I felt like a tiny bit monotonous, but man, I really love Towers. I thought that song was gorgeous. I think Towers and Pink Skies kind of, there's this theme running through Zach's music of grief and from having lost his mom that is so apparent in just how he writes and how it's shaped him. And I think that's an ingredient that I expect to get on his records too. But in general, I think the feel of this record is quite hopeful and happy. Like it might sound sadder than it even is sometimes, but it seems like he's a little bit on the east side of sorrow. Oh my gosh, The Way Back. That's the other one I forgot. Two other songs I have to mention. The Way Back, because I love that song. I think it's beautiful. And then on Great American Bar Scene, I actually really do like the form of that song where you're getting these kind of little vignettes of someone that's been in a fight and it's like, well, that's in the Great American Bar Scene. And then you look over here and you get these characters that are in a bar. It's like it's a very Zach Bryan-ish version of I Love This Bar by Toby Keith in a way.
Well, I went and got my good friend Mickey and we made ourselves.
Delco Danny is mentioned in that song. I think it might be this random tatted guy from Philly that I saw on a YouTube channel driving around in a car. I don't know, but I tried to figure that out. Again, another proper name where you're trying to figure out what does this mean and use your context clues. I don't mind. It's like the poetic search of listening to Zach. But yeah, I really like this album. I don't think it's my favorite Zach Bryan album ever, but these albums are so hard to rank because they feel like pretty even to me. They just feel like kind of different shades of the same man, and it's not like he made one that was like really crazy and threw all the rules out the window from the others, but I do like the sound of this record a lot more than the last one. Although I like some of the hooks on the last one more than this. So anyway, I like it, and those are my thoughts. And this is actually my first album review of the year. Kind of like not really reviewing albums these days, so this was hard to shoot for some reason. But I shot it, and more soon.